Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Josh Heupel, the Tennessee Vols. I've never been a fan of moral victories. What we saw Saturday afternoon from Tennessee, man, that's about as close as it gets. And the reason I choose to say that is 5 weeks ago, man, we were clueless in terms of what we were going to get from this football team. I think even the Tennessee fans that were optimistic, even the Tennessee fans that follow this program 12 months out of a year, you go ask a Tennessee fan, say, what do you expect in 2025? They'd probably just put their hands up and say, I don't know. Coming out of that game Saturday, like we looking at this team and say, hey, it's a college football playoff caliber team. And hell, that's a team that can compete for an SEC championship. And the reason I choose to say that is go look across the SEC right now and say how many teams look better than what Tennessee looked like on Saturday afternoon. We all had question marks. This should also excite Tennessee fans is I think this team only gets better as 2025 goes on. You got a quarterback in Joey Aguilar who's been in this Josh Heupel offense for 3 months tops. Probably only going to get better as he gets more reps under his belt. You got an offensive line that's got a lot of new faces. I'll say this, that offensive line, I think it's better than what we saw in 2024, specifically in pass protection. The defensive side of the football is riddled with injuries, and some of your best players at that. What happens when they get back? This is a team that showed Saturday that they can bang with anybody in the country. And you make no mistake about that. And we're probably only going to get better as 2025 goes on. If I'm a Tennessee fan, it sucks to lose that football game. But what we learned is that this is a team that can compete at the highest level of the sport. And we have to give, before we get nitty gritty and talk about what we saw, monster hat tip to Josh Heupel. Right. Number one, he has a track record that is telling us that he's one of the best coaches in this sport. In 2025, golly, he is certainly showing that. And what I mean by that is he has created a program at Tennessee, not just a good football team in 2024. This is a good program. There's a difference between good teams and good programs. Good teams will have good players and they'll be good that year. And when they lose those good players, they're normally not all that good the next year. The good programs, they got good players. They lose those good players to the NFL, and then they're good the next year because they got other guys to step up. I mean, I had question marks about replacing some of those bodies on the defensive line. I had question marks about what this Tennessee offensive line was going to be. How well can they run the football in 2025? We got those questions answered Saturday afternoon against Georgia. Want to get into what we saw, talk about what makes this team better than what it was in 2024, and at least, why to expect that I think this team can get even better as 2025 goes on. Before we get into it, as always, the Tennessee fans appreciate you guys. And the thing I would say here is buckle up because I think this team can do a lot of damage, especially when they get healthy, especially as they continue to take those steps. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, a team that I would put my hand up and say I was dead wrong about in the preseason. And I'm very excited to talk about this team over the next couple of weeks and months. Without further ado, let's get into it. Hey, Joey Aguilar. I think he's a massive upgrade from what you saw from Nico last year. And I want to get into the reasoning why. Number one, he is clearly showing that he understands what he's doing in this offense. And one of the things I always look at is average time to throw. Like, how well are you processing? How quickly are you finding your answers? Joey Aguilar through 3 games is significantly quicker getting the ball out on time. Nico's average time to throw last year in 2024 was 2.99 seconds. Nico wasn't processing. Nico was not seeing it. Then you go to Joey Aguilar, who, again, has been in this offense for what? Cup of coffee. He's been in this offense for 3 months. The ball is coming out on an average 2.4 seconds, significantly faster than what we saw from Nico last year. He is showing us that he has the ability to understand and run this offense at a higher level than Nico did last year. How about this, the deep ball? Nico last year, 32% completion percentage, 20 plus yards down the field. That's such a massive stat because Josh Heupel is going to give you some of those throws that can go change games. You got to be able to make those throws. 32%, that wasn't cutting it last year for Nico. Joey Aguilar nearly a 70% completion percentage, attacking the deeper third. That is elite. I haven't cross-checked that, but that's got to be one of the best numbers in the country through 3 weeks. And I get that's a small sample size, but Joey Aguilar is showing you that he can make the throws that Nico would be missing last year. How about this? Getting himself out of trouble. Tennessee's not taking sacks. Now, I think number one, you have to give credit to the offensive line, and we're going to talk about that. But I think Joey Aguilar, number one, getting the ball out quickly, so he's not taking a lot of sacks. But when it's time to get outside the pocket and go create and go be a difference maker, look, is Joey Aguilar this beautiful NFL draft prospect? I don't know. But man, is he a gamer. Man, can he make things happen when it's not perfect around him. And that's something that Nico always struggled to do at Tennessee last year. I mean, there are not only the eyeball test, like the eyeball test is telling us this offense is better with Joey Aguilar running it than Nico, but you start looking at the numbers and saying, hey, that certainly supports it as well. Number two, the offensive line. I mean, I know David Sanders kind of working through that injury, and I don't know when he's going to get back. Sounds like I don't think the right word is complications, but it sounds like that's a tricky injury that he's dealing with. You have the ability to take your time with David Sanders because Jesse Perry has been nails at the right tackle position. Wendell Moe was a massive hit. There's not a more consistent offensive lineman on this team than Wendell Moe on the inside. Lance Hurd's taken a step, specifically in pass protection. What I was learning here is, yes, this Tennessee team can still run the football. There's no doubt about it. And you got to give a massive shout out to Deshaun Bishop. Got to give a massive shout out to Star Thomas. I didn't think we get that kind of play from Star. Star Thomas got some juice to him this year for Tennessee. This offensive line has shown us they can still run the football. My bigger takeaway is it's a way better unit in pass protection. Like, as much as that offensive line for Tennessee could move some bodies and road grade a little bit last year, when they had to drop back and throw the football, they weren't great keeping quarterbacks clean. I think this offensive line has shown us they're better in pass protection, significantly better in pass protection than what we saw last year. How about the wide receivers taking the step? Most notably, Chris Brazelman. How many times did Tennessee's wide receivers go up and make plays for the quarterback last year? Not much. It was a significant problem for the Tennessee fans who watched that football team last year. Different vibe this year. Like the playmaking ability, the juice after the catch. I mean, I think it was telling that Josh Heupel was, he kicked around a few wide receivers, but he did not really get aggressive or desperate to add wide receivers. And that should have told us, hey, maybe we're confident that the wide receivers on this roster can take a step. You fought like hell to keep Mikey Matthews from the portal last year. I think you're really happy with and I still think it can get better. I would like to see a little bit less drops, but from a playmaking ability standpoint, go up, make plays for your quarterback. We're seeing Tennessee do that. That's something we didn't have last year. I'm looking at this team and say, I don't know if we have a running back like Dylan Sampson, but we're kind of replacing his production by a committee. The rest of this offense, is it not pretty clearly dang better than what we saw in 2020? I don't think anybody had that on their bingo card. That's kind of what we're talking about for Tennessee in 2025. Now, the defensive side of the football, here's the big storyline that I think a lot of people are missing is, yes, the injuries are really, really crucial. I feel like people are focusing on the wrong injuries, though. Jermod McCoy, Ricky Gibson, and I probably said that wrong because those are two really good cornerbacks, and you saw, especially the true freshman Ty Redmond kind of get picked on a little bit on Saturday. It'll be huge when you get those two cornerbacks back, especially a guy like Jermod McCoy that, he's one of, if not the best cornerbacks in the country when he's healthy. The bigger important injuries to me are probably David Hobbs and Jackson. Because I look at it and say Tennessee, one of the things that made Tennessee so special on defense last year was how deep that defensive line was, right? And why is that so important? Like, Tennessee wants to run fast on the offense side of the football, which means there's going to be more drives. Your defense is going to have to play more. Having the ability to rotate those big bodies, keep them fresh for 4 quarters was a massive advantage for Tennessee. With the injuries that you have to Hobbs and to Jackson, you got guys like Don Bailey, you got guys like Bryson Eason. They both played over 65 snaps against Georgia. That is a ton for dang near 300-plus pound bodies. Last year, Don Bailey at the most played 45 snaps. Bryson Easton at the most was playing around 30, right? When you get those bodies back healthy and maybe you see some progression from some of the young defensive linemen as well, you start feeling better about the depth on the defensive line. Because for me, that was probably the bigger storyline is you could tell that that Tennessee defensive line was playing more snaps than they probably should have because they needed to, and I get that. But as you get Hobbs back and as you get Jackson back, that depth on the defensive line, getting that depth back is going to be huge. And when you get the cornerbacks back, that's going to be huge as well. Will this Tennessee defense be as dominant as we saw last year? I don't know, but I will say this: the offensive line is much, or excuse me, the offense in general, I think has the opportunity to be much better than what we saw in 2024. You look at it and say that this, you could make the argument that this is a more improved team in 20. And I don't think many people had that on their bingo card. I certainly did not. This team showed us on Saturday that they might be a better team in 2025 than they were in 2024. And if you're a Tennessee fan, whether you make the college football playoffs or not this year, you got a guy in Josh Heupel. You could see him for the next 10 to 15 years, like building a real dominant program in this conference. He's already doing it. The steps that this program has taken, like don't overlook that stuff, specifically what they're doing along the lines of scrimmage. What always held Tennessee, what held a lot of teams in the SEC back from competing with Alabama and Georgia for the last decade was we didn't have the bodies up front. Tennessee's throwing a lot of resources to make that happen. And you are starting to see that. Like, this is a team that can dominate the line of scrimmage, and that matters, right? They were the better line of scrimmage team Saturday afternoon. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. A team that I was so wrong about in the offseason. And now all of a sudden, it's like I'm kind of getting behind the Vols, baby, because they're a really fun team, and I give Josh Heupel a lot of credit for how he managed the turbulent offseason and is producing a team that can bang with a lot of people in the country. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.